Yes. It's your man Hakeem Green, channel live and direct. BDP all day, every day. All we do is spark Mad Ism live and direct on Mad Ism TV. Today is Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022. It is Tuesday, 2 o'clock, 2:22 on 2/22/2022. It's a very special day at a very special time, and we're being joined by a very special person who carries with him a very special lineage with a whole host of traditions and just knowledge and jewelry. He's going to share that with us today. Abiodun from the Last Poets is in the building today. But you know how we do over here on Madison TV. I'm going to throw up a little joint, Jewelry by Hakeem Green produced by Ron Lawrence, just to set it off, give us a chance to invite some people to the building, get some people to join the conversation in the comment section. Folks who are out there already, please like, share, subscribe. Let them know we're doing it big today. Come on, let's go, y'all. Jewelry. Yeah, this goes out to every old head took the time to drop a jewel on me. You know what I mean? Little bits of wisdom. Yo, check it out. Listen. If pimpin' ain't easy, what the fuck is revolution? What? Rappers be spitting straight noise pollution. Here's a clean glass of water, I show you how to eat the live. What goes around comes, let me show you how to give. There's something that you hear when an honor's at your rib. In the street, you milk your jewels, thug jewel like baby bibs. I try to stay mindful, write something for the kids. Talk it like I walk it, rap it how I live. I came up blue collar, strive to be a scholar, but I couldn't eat the love, I only starved without the dollar. Depression, the stress is enough to make you holler when the landlord's at your doorstep. The devil's on your collar. It's all like jewels. Can I drop a jewel? Can I drop a jewel? Can I drop a jewel? Yeah. It's all like jewels. Can I drop a jewel? Can I drop a jewel? Can I drop a jewel? Yeah. They call me a slacker, cause I won't sell crack for the cracker. I call women queens and I love the berry blacker. Some chicks get it twisted, they'd rather be called bitches with their ass in the air like everybody's supposed to kiss it. It's a simple lesson, you get what you deserve. It's life a bitch or just a pimp with a perm. See mommy tricked out, made a little heartburn. It's something she'll forget when it's time to take her turn. When will the children learn this was better to earn? But when my niggas put in work, they like to make the metal burn. End up in the system, it's all systematic. Maturing candidates, waving automatics. A product of a project launched in the 80s. Chemical warfare meant to kill the crack babies. Now as the world turns, is it just a story? Cause keeping it real got my sons in purgatory. It's all like jewels. Can I drop a jewel? Can I drop a jewel? Can I drop a jewel? Yeah. It's all like jewels. Can I drop a jewel? Can I drop a jewel? Can I drop a jewel? Yeah. In between heaven and Hades, like earthquakes in Haiti. The fat lady clears her throat and then plays heart for the baby. They say I'm such a mystic, lyrics are mythic, but I make it so plain with details and specifics. I'm just gifted like that. I'm young and I'm black. Some represent the game, I represent the fact that God helps those who helps themselves. So when God helps you, he's really helping himself. Make every day have purpose, it's the science of life. Every breath's another role, it's a science to die. Give me the moment. Learn from your mistakes, try to learn from others. You get one roll in life, you won't get another. You have to learn the tricks, cause some niggas be on the gab. Want some funny business, but that shit won't make you laugh. I thought he had the bread, wasn't wonder not the weed. I'm wondering how it's coming back, cause my connect ain't getting these. It's all like jewels. Can I drop a jewel? Can I drop a jewel? Can I drop a jewel? Yeah. It's all like jewels. Can I drop a jewel? Can I drop a jewel? Can I drop a jewel? Yeah. Yeah. Yes, that was Jewelry by Hakeem Green, produced by Ron Lawrence, off the upcoming album Aubrey, dropping later next month, March 20th, somewhere around there. We're getting it ready, getting it right and exact. But today on Madism TV, we have Abiodun Oyewole, and we're gonna bring him in right now. Peace, sir. You got unmute your mic.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. How you doing, sir?
I'm wonderful. How you doing? I just saw your video. That was
yes,
very
sir.
nice.
Oh yes, thank you. Well, I gotta thank you. All honors and salute to you, because it's folks like yourself who made stuff like that possible. I try to carry a certain tradition when I create my art. And the Last Poets is definitely influential on me in that way.
Well, I've always said that hip hop should be a Rolls Royce of a whole musical art form, because within there you have a whole lot of space to teach, to give lessons, to say something to folks.
Yeah.
Who's driving the car, because you can take a Rolls Royce and put it in the wrong hand and become a wreck. And some folks have been wrecking it up and not taking care of it like they should, because I see hip hop as being something very important, especially at this particular time. We're going through this pandemic. We got this serious social injustice thing going on. I mean, I understand there's a police officer who shot the brother in the car for stopping for a traffic violation, whatever. She got like 15 months in prison, in jail. That's a vacation. I mean, and by the same token, the one judge, she acted like a human being and gave the killers of Ahmaud Arbery life without parole. And that's what they should get. I mean, but the truth is that hip hop can expose and elevate and do a whole lot more than what's happening. I enjoy the fun games. I know that we're fun people, we're festive people. I love all that. But the reality is that we need some assistance now in getting ourselves together.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, what I like to do with my guests is, start out with a walk through history. I think historical context is extremely important to get a sense of, who we are. We have to know where we come from, and who we come from. So with that said, with the Last Poets, the name The Last Poet, where did that name come from, and who are the founding members?
The founding members, well, the group was born on May 19th, 1968. So, and that came it really came out of the fact that Dr. King was killed April 4th, 1968. And I was ready to become a serial killer, to be honest, because I felt that white folks were never going to give us our fair deal. They were never going to be righteous. We're never going to really get equality, because this man was marching on the platform of love and peace, and they shot him down. I personally felt insulted, and I was very upset. So I had a friend, an older friend named David Nelson, who ran an anti-poverty program. He was writing a little poetry, and he had mentioned to me a year before we got started that he wanted to start a collective of poets, because poets usually hang alone. They don't hang out in groups.
Really?
So he wanted to have a collective to give Black people an example of how much we need to unify. And he said, if you see three poets on stage dealing with the same issue from their particular angle, maybe Black folks will realize that we got the same foot on our necks, that we have to unify to get off of our necks. So that was the impetus of the poets. So when we got together on May 19th in a park, at the time it's called Mount Mars Park. It's been renamed since then. It's called Marcus Garvey Park.
Yes, sir.
And we got it was by David Nelson, myself, and a brother named Guy Kane, who I still consider one of the greatest poets of all time. He's got some issues. A lot of our gifted brothers and sisters have issues, but the gift is authentic and his gift is rich. And so when we got on stage, we weren't called the Last Poets. We were just three individuals doing poetry. Once we got the applause and the affirmation from the people, it was about, matter of fact, the very first time we got on stage after the gig, there was a guy from New York University offered us a gig that very next Friday at the school. So it was about searching for a name. And Kane, his idea was to have a place in Harlem. He said, if we have a place where we could do workshops, we would endear ourselves to the people that much more. I thought the ideas were good. I was the youngest one in the group. I was learning. I was just trying to get into my Black Power mode at the time. So the fact is that David Nelson started doing research on what we could call ourselves. Kane had an idea that we might call ourselves the East Poets. I thought that was corny because there was the East Side Kids, and I didn't want to be connected with that. But I knew where he was coming from. He was saying our philosophy must come from the East. It can't come from the West because the West is messed up.
Yeah. Well,
I got that.
I'm sorry, not to interrupt your flow, but just for folks who may not know, when we say the East and the West, politically speaking, can you just, so people know what we're talking about?
Yeah. The Eastern concept of life, they cherish life on another level. The Western concept is exactly what we see with what's happening with Russia and America right now with wars. And they've been had a study in school, the 100 Years Crusades, which is like war for 100 years. I mean, the Western civilization is really screwed up, and it's coming from Greece and Rome. And so we're going to see a whole lot of perversion. We're going to see a lot of war because that's what Greece and Rome were all about. They were warmongers. They had issues with their sexual situations, and they created a very inhuman place for human beings to be in. And so when we talk about the West, we're talking about a whole philosophical way of living that was unfit for even animals. And when we talk about the East, we're talking about recognizing the sacredness of life itself, recognizing that people were cherishing people and appreciating the worth of people. There's a whole nother headset. So the East and the West had that kind of difference. And that still exists today. Matter of fact, no one goes to college in this country without making sure that you have to take a course in Western civilization.
Yeah, yes,
Western civilization is basically the foundation for the mess that we're in right now. And they continuously pump it because that's their tradition, that's their background, that's their foundation. It's not ours. African people are coming from an Eastern concept. We come from a whole nother mission. We would never hook up cages for animals. We would never mistreat any living thing because we had love for all living things.
Yeah.
You go to Africa, you will never see walls or fences or locks and things like this. You didn't worry about people stealing your stuff. But the West, they prepare you for the worst of life. They prepare you for all of the possibilities of disaster. Whereas in the East, we're looking for love and we're looking for happiness internally. We're looking for nirvana. We're not looking for hate, for hell. No. Hell is what the West represents, and the East represented nirvana.
Wow. Okay, so you were almost called the East Poets, but you said, nah, that's...
No, that wasn't working.
Even though you were lying philosophically, that wasn't going to work.
No, it wasn't going to work.
That wasn't going to work. Okay.
There was a South African poet named Petsi Kokosili. Very few people could say his name because it was difficult sound. So we called him here in New York City. He was known as Little Willie. Little Willie Kokosili.
And you discovered him in Harlem too, right?
Right. He was in Harlem. Little Willie. And there was a very potent, a monster, as you could still be got, anthology called Black Fire. Black Fire was the anthology of anthologies of that particular period. It had all the great writers of that time, some plays, some short stories, a whole lot of poetry, but it was a thick book of work done by revolutionaries who emerged during the 60s. It was put together by Leroy Jones, who was later known as Amir Baraka.
Oh, yes, sir.
And Larry Neal.
Yeah.
And in this book, on I think page 327, I'm not sure exactly the page, but in the book, there's a poem called Towards a Walk in the Sun, written by Little Willie Kokosili. And David was reading, he had read Sterling Brown's poem, Black Men Keep on Coming. He had read Margaret Walker's poem, My People. He had read a number of poems to try to find a name suitable for us. But when he read Little Willie's poem, It was called Towards the Walk in the Sun. Kokosili is from South Africa, and at that time they were going through what a whole period called apartheid, where the natives of South Africa were treated like they were not from that country. They had to walk around with ID cards, and if they did not have the ID card, they would be thrown in jail immediately.
Yeah.
So that was just one of the oppressive things happening. And Kokosili wrote this down in a poem. He gave you a description of the horrible situations that his people were going through. And you could feel his anger, you could feel the rage in the poem. And at the end of the poem, in very bold letters, he writes, "This wind you hear is the birth of memory. When the moment hatches in time's womb, there will be no art talk. The only poem you will hear will be the spear point pivoted into the punctured marrow of the villain and the timeless native sun dancing like crazy to retrieve rhythms of desire fading into memory." David Nelson added, "Therefore, we are the last poets of the world." So, so we had a creed, we had a platform to stand on, and we were really, in essence, saying that when you hear us, you're hearing the final call, you're hearing the final message before the stuff hits the fan.
That's power. Okay, let me see. What are your early inspirations? Like what was going on around you, artistically and politically, that inspired the?
Well, after we always go back to the music. There was a lot of music was hyping us up, like I was mentioning to you about hip hop earlier. Music always plays a very important part in our lives. And if we don't have it, we're dead. We are musically inclined from nature itself. I mean, that's just our natural existence. Curtis Mayfield, he always said something that was politically charging. A lot of folks don't give Curtis Mayfield the due that he deserves, but he was great. His lyrics were wonderful. Keep on pushing. There's a train coming. I mean, there's all kind of. He always had something to say that was trying to lift us up. We are a winner. I mean, he always tried. So music was inspirational. Of course, Nina Simone has always been important. I was in love with Nina Simone because she came around and had a piece called Mississippi Goddamn. Folks are down there marching, trying to get rights, trying to get voting rights, something that we are dealing with today in 2022. Like, and Malcolm, of course, Malcolm said that if we were American, there would be no problem. And Malcolm was also a major influence even in my life. I never had a chance to talk to Malcolm. I never had a chance to meet Malcolm, but I would see him. My folks used to go to church in Harlem. I lived in Queens, New York, and every Sunday we would come from Queens to Harlem. And that was a great day for me because I'd be in Harlem. Harlem had a certain essence, a certain spirit, a certain vibe that you didn't see you couldn't feel no place else. And I remember one time we were coming down the block and I saw this orange looking man. He looked orange to me. And he was very tall. He looked like he was about 7 feet tall. I didn't know at the time he was standing on a step ladder, but he had a bunch of people around him. And I mean, because I was a kid in the backseat of my father's car, they had this rule back in the day where children should be seen and not heard. So I couldn't get into the conversation. But I remember my aunt telling my mother, she said, "See that man sitting over there talking to them people? That man's telling the truth. They're gonna kill that man." And I couldn't understand why she would tell my mother that they were gonna kill him because he was telling the truth. I know if I did not tell the truth, I was gonna get my butt whipped badly. And this man is telling the truth and he's gonna get killed. I didn't understand it. The fact of the matter is, in high school, I went to Harron High School, which was an all-boys high school, and Malcolm got killed on a Sunday. That Monday when I went to school, my homeroom teacher, who happened to be Black, Miss Carpenter, she gave us a holiday. She said a great man was killed, was gunned down yesterday. That's when I began to understand who Malcolm was. I didn't really understand where he was coming from, what he was about, until I started reading. I had a Jewish friend, ironically, my first school I went to was at Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa. And Michael Gorkin, who was a friend of mine, a guy I had worked with in the anti-poverty program, where I first met David Nelson, one of the original poets. he said, if you come to Iowa and you meet somebody you want to hook up, I have an apartment and I'll give you my apartment if you want to hang out with a particular girl or something like that. So I met a sister when I went to university. I visited University of Iowa in Iowa City, and I went over to his apartment, and on the kitchen table he had a book. It was the Autobiography of Malcolm X. And so
Wow.
now here's this man who my aunt had told me that they were going to kill him, and now I'm looking at the autobiography of this man. And I had this girl with me,
In
and
Iowa.
in Iowa,
In
and
Iowa. That's crazy.
yeah, of all places. And even though I was supposed to be romancing this young lady, I read the book
Book.
the whole weekend, man. I couldn't put it down. Alex Haley really got into that. He gave you a. I mean, that's a must read for those folks that like to read. That I mean,
Look,
Spike Lee did a great job of it in the movie, but the book
but the book is
always
just, well,
go ahead.
So I was born in 69, spent some time in the nation as a youth, 2, 3,
Okay.
4 years old, right? Came out, the 80s. My mother was in her late 20s and 30s by the time the 80s turned around. You gotta work, so she kind of, put it, we kind of got distracted from the consciousness, right? Went to college in 87, and just my mind wasn't right, and it showed in a lot, and it showed in a lot of ways. And some older brothers on campus said to me, "Read this book," and we had the book in the library at the house, just never read it. It was there, never read it. I read that book summer of 1988, and it changed my life. It put me on the path that I've been on since then. That's because of Malcolm X. Like his life, he's so relatable to all of us because he's been so many different people in his life as he grew. So yeah, I don't want to take away from your interview, but I just wanted to
but
that, right?
When I teach it in school, when I mention Malcolm and I talk about the great leaders, I always juxtapose him with Martin. I say Martin was basically born almost with a silver spoon in his mouth. His father was a preacher. His mother was a teacher. He liked to play softball. He liked to read books. Malcolm, the reason I think many of us men relate to Malcolm more because Malcolm went through the whole gauntlet of life itself. He and I say every time Malcolm grew, every time he evolved into another person, he had a different name. So I start out with the 5 names of Malcolm. Malcolm Little, when he was in school, and the teacher asked him, "What do you want to do?" He said, "I want to be a lawyer." And the teacher said, "Niggas can't be lawyers.
Work with your hands."
And then later on, he was known as Detroit Red. He went and I think any black man in America who is really a living entity on this planet recognizes that we go through changes to find ourselves here. And we're not as fortunate as Dr. King to be born with the security that he was born with. Many of us have to find a way to become secure. And Malcolm had to find his way. And each step of his journey was vital because he was committed to every single phase of his life. I mean, when he went to prison, he was so mean. He didn't take no crap from nobody. They called him Satan. I mean, he was no joke. But that's why he was in prison is when he got connected with Elijah Muhammad. And Elijah Muhammad was smart because he needed a person who could speak, who could articulate,
charismatic, good energy.
And Malcolm was willing to be that voice, and he gained knowledge and wisdom. At the same time, Malcolm was a Taurus, and Taurans usually are very loyal. When they hook up with somebody, they don't flounder. They usually stick on the path because they're usually filled with passion. And Malcolm's life was passionately involved with the liberation of Black people. So I respect everything about Malcolm and the fact that he actually became a hero of mine, even though I said I'd never met him. In my heart and soul, I've met him many times.
Yeah. Now, when we talk about the foundation of the last poets in Mount Morris Park, Marcus Garvey Park, May 19th, which is Malcolm's birthday, but you said it was inspired by the assassination of Martin Luther King, and I wanted to kind of connect those dots. How there was, inspired by the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King,
right?
But founded on Malcolm's birthday.
Yeah, but because when they killed Dr. King, as far as I was concerned, they killed the civil rights movement. And the only movement that we had to replace it was the Black Power movement. And the thing about it is, Brother Hakeem, I was raised like a Black Power child. My father didn't read no books, but he believed that you should have your own. And he did not believe in being a whooping boy for a white man. He believed in being he was from Savannah, Georgia. Now he believed in work, which I could not handle because I wanted to play. I was a kid, but I had to feed chickens and rabbits before I went to school. Who in the hell did that in Queens? I had to make sure the dogs had fresh water every day. I learned how to plant collard greens and corn and tomatoes. I learned all that in Queens, New York. If we had a vacant piece of land, we had a nice piece of property, he would turn half of that property into a farm. And I was the farmer. And I hated it, man. I wanted to go play handball. I wanted to hang out with the girls. I wanted to be fly. I had work to do.
Yeah, you're building character. That's what you're doing.
He was building character, and there was little. You could leave me on a desert and come back. I have a castle built. I know how to do stuff because of my father. He was crude in terms of we didn't have no huggy type of relationship, but he gave me a work ethic that I stick to today. My mother gave me love. And that was offset. So I got a perfectly balanced way of being raised. And my father always felt that we needed, as Black people, to always stand up strong and never cow down, never buckle to the system that tries to keep us down. And so there was a sense of pride, a sense of strength that he passed on to me as well. I mean, and he believed in being a show off. He used to always get a Pontiac and have white wall tires. And of course, I had to take the Brillo and make sure the white wall tires were clean before we went to church on Sunday, because he liked to show off, but that's another thing that Black folks like to do. We will definitely
gotta shine. Gotta shine.
We're demonstrative. We want you to see, baby. Check me out.
That's right.
So it was a beautiful. I have truly been blessed because both of my parents, my fact, on the new album, Gratitude, the first piece is Rain, which is dedicated to my mother and father. And I've never done a piece dedicated to my mother and father. And that one really touched me, mainly because it was raining so bad, there was nothing else to do. And I'm sitting here in the house looking at the rain. And I started thinking about my parents. And I just wrote that piece, and it became a major piece of my life because it made me go back and recognize the gifts that I, like you say, jewels that I had been given.
Yeah. Now we want to talk about gratitude at length, but before we get there, I want you to see if like we have this thing where we talk about hip hop, and people are really talking about rap music, not talking about hip hop. Hip hop is the culture. Hip hop is what's going down on the grassroots level, what people are going through in their everyday life, right? And then you have the rap music, which is the mainstream that's happening on the radio, what have you, And we don't understand, or we lose sight of the fact that that dichotomy has been around forever, where, you have your big acts, mainstream, but then you have these underground movements of which the Last Poets were made, a big part of. It's hard to get exposure at that point. It's hard because, you go from, being a spoken word poet on the street. Now you're making records, you're getting some notoriety, and you're seeing your career expand, and you want to see it keep expanding. But then you realize there's a ceiling for quote unquote underground revolutionary artists. Can you talk about that dichotomy as it existed in the 60s?
First of all, Garland Kane, when we first got together, Garland Kane made a proclamation to the group from the very beginning. He said, we're never going to record, because once we record, we're going to be in the mess with the rest of the so-called recording artists. We're not a recording group. We are revolutionaries. And I went for that. I thought that was perfect. I wasn't down with recording. I really wasn't. The fact is that we were performing all over the place. We had a place, and we called our workspace, we called it the East Wind, which dealt again with that philosophical concept. And we were the Last Poets. And we did workshops, political science workshops. I had a creative writing workshop. Kane had a dramatic workshop. Matter of fact, out of our place came the National Black Theater, which became a very big deal because that's where Barbara Antier would rent space from us for $75 a month. Lord knows. I don't know what you can get.
On 125 in Madison?
125th Street between 5th and Madison. Exactly.
Madison. Oh, man, that's I see what they've done.
And then later on,
Lord have mercy.
Yeah, and her sister, and her sister Frederica and her got together, did a grant, and then they got the building right there on 5th Avenue, 125th Street. Yeah, but before that, they were doing all the National Black Theater workshops were out of our spot, which was called the East Wing. And it was, and next door to our loft, because it was a loft space that we had, next door to our loft was the first African dance and drum studio headed by a brother named Olatunji. Olatunji, that's way back. He put out the very first African drum album called Drums of Passion. And he was directly from Nigeria. Well, and we were very, very close.
It's crazy. It's crazy that you went there because I have a specific question about the drum and its importance.
Oh yes, the drum is vital, and matter of fact, when we were putting together the group, we actually auditioned a number of drummers until we found the one that could speak the language. Because it's not just about beating on the drum. It's not. The drum is a communication device, and if you don't know how to play, you should learn how to play. Everybody might have a desire to want to hit the skins a little bit, but know how to hit the skins. There's a way. We auditioned different drummers who would accompany us when we did poetry. I think we may have gone through about 4 or 5 until we got to the one drummer named Elijah. He could speak to us directly. Matter of fact, if you listen to our very first album, Elijah was so good, he never played the same rhythm behind any of the poems. Every single poem had its own rhythmic pattern. And it was amazing because he was just gifted like that. And the other thing about it, which also was he was a barometer as to whether or not your poetry was going to make it into the repertoire. Because if you got on stage, when I remember one time I had written this poem, I thought it was great. I was talking about the folks out there in Queens, all the bougie niggas. I was just, I was ranting and raving. I called the poem Get Hit. And I even typed it up with my grandfather's typewriter. And I got up on stage to share it with the group to see if I could put it into the repertoire. Elijah had his congas in a duffel bag. And if he didn't pull out the congas while you were doing your poem, you might as well throw that poem in the garbage. And Elijah was a good friend of mine. We used to hang when we weren't doing the show. We'd just hang out. Elijah never looked at his duffel bag. And I felt so bad. And then when I finished, Kane said, "Man, we're not reading that shit on the stage. Man, you ranting and raving." I got totally rejected, but I had to look at the poem and realize that it was a bunch of ranting and raving. I hadn't said anything at all, really. I was just spotting up some steam. And Elijah was always there. And I don't know if he knew anything about metaphors or similes, none of that stuff, but he knew about feelings. And if he couldn't feel it, from his heart, from his soul aspect, it wasn't happening. But yeah, so the drummer became important, very, very important, because you see, we've always done stuff like you were saying before, that there was nothing that we've done that's new. It's a repeat of what we've done before. Before those ships came and took us and brought us over here, I'm sure we were using the drum and maybe some other instruments like a kora to express a lot of things, to tell stories, to let people know what chief was getting married, where, and all that kind of stuff. Information was passed on, and we always accompanied it in a musical way because we're musically inclined. I've been going to Senegal up until the pandemic jumped off. I've been going there for the last 7 years, and I'd written a song about this artist retreat in Senegal, and the name of the place is Sobobode. And the chorus line in that song is kind of tricky because I do the chorus Sobobode about 4 times, but each time I do it, it's a slight difference. And it's kind of like tricky because it's like half a note difference or whatnot. And it's hard to, if you're not musically involved, you might do it a little differently. Man, I did that song at a high school in Senegal one time. And the first time I did the chorus, I did it by myself. The second time I did the chorus, 1,000 kids were in it like they knew it. I said, man, African people are just musically inclined. We just have that naturally.
That's it.
We don't need to go to school to learn about music. Music is in us.
Well, we know that the universe itself is vibration.
That's right. That's
right?
Exactly.
So the universe is rhythmic. The cycles is rhythm. The years, the days, the months, the movement of the planets, the ocean, the breeze, the trees, the swaying, exactly. All that's rhythm and motion. So it just shows how, much we're connected to the universal power.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yes, sir. So, we discussed the drum, but the spoken word, though, the word itself, the importance of the spoken word.
The word, for me, the word itself, the people, if you're a real poet and you're trying to reach a group of people, you better understand your folks. And the best way to understand your folks is to be around your folks and listen to them. Once again, the music always kind of gives you a heads up as to what's going on. I remember when David told me that he had put our names on a list to read poetry for Malcolm X's birthday on May 19th. There was a part of me that was very happy, and there was a part of me that was scared to death. I would be very honest, because I'm saying to myself, what the hell am I going to say on a stage in Harlem to Harlem people? Because Harlem always had cachet. Harlem was always a big deal. I mean, this was a citadel of Black culture. I didn't know if I could really cut it, if I was going to be able to measure up, if I was going to get any kind of appeal from the people. So I did the smartest thing I could do, and I still do today, and I suggest that people should do this. I came to Harlem. I walked around. I kept my mouth shut. I kept my eyes open. I kept my ears open, and I listened. And at the time, there was a song by the IZM brothers, "It's Your Thing. Do what you want to do. I can't tell you who to sock it to." And Black folks were using that chorus line as a statement. That brother walk up to a brother and say, "Yo, man, what's your thing, brother?" Brother say, "Oh, I'm in the Nation of Islam." Say, "What's your thing, brother?" "I'm a Black Panther." So I'm listening, and I'm realizing that if you say your thing, it really saying, what is your affiliation with the movement? So I'm saying, wow, that's deep. So we will take our songs and politicize them in our day-to-day activity. So I wrote a poem. My very first poem was, "What is your thing, brother? Is it a Black thing? Will it save Black women and children? Will it build a Black nation? What is your thing, brother?" And I just went through all the issues that we were facing and asking if your thing could relate to those issues. And the poem worked. I wouldn't say it was one of my poetic gems, but it had all the issues that we were faced with, and the people appreciated it because when you start writing for a particular group of people, you take the poetry that the people themselves create and give it back to them with a greater understanding. The poet doesn't tell you anything new. The poet makes you see what you already know, but make you understand it in a way you have not understood it before. He gives you more insight into what you think you know already.
That is so deep. Oh man, he said the poet takes the poetry that the people are already and gives it back to them.
Exactly.
Man, that's thank you.
We're natural poets. The way, like you just talked about the rhythm. Look at the way we walk and talk, man. It's all rhythmic. Everything. We dress poetically. We talk poetically. I mean, come on. I mean, we came up with high five. That was natural. I was watching a baseball game one day, and there were two white boys up in the Yankee Stadium, and they were they both. No, what was funny? The cameras was on them, and Derek Jeter had just hit a home run, and they went to slap each other high five, and they slapped each other in the face. Yeah. and the announcer, but check this out, Hakeem. The announcer said they got to go home and work on that. And I said, can you imagine?
Yeah,
practicing high five.
There's no need practice. It's that's it. Oh, boom! It's right on time. No miss. It's there.
No, it's about rhythm, and we have that naturally, and it shows up in everything we do. And that's one reason why I just love my folks so much, because we are natural poetry, and we just need to get a grip on it.
Okay, tell me about free jazz poetry or jazzoetry.
Jazzoetry. Well, that was a title that Jalal Mansur Nordine, I give credit for being the biggest influence into hip hop because every poem that he wrote rhymed. He passed away a couple of years ago. He had a very bad stage of cancer, but he was a genius, I thought, because his rhymes made a lot of sense. He didn't just rhyme for the sake of rhyming. We could have a conversation, and before you know it, it would turn to a rhyme. Matter of fact, one of the pieces on our album is called "Jones Coming Down," and it's a whole breakdown of the life as a junkie, a day in the life of a junkie, and how that came to be is Jalal had come to me and he said, "Yo, man, you know what's killing black folks besides the police?" I said, "Well, drugs." He said, "We got to do some research, brother. We got to deal with this issue." So I'm trying to figure out what he's talking about. He took me out to a shooting gallery in Brooklyn. A shooting gallery at that time was a place where the junkies would sit around and shoot drugs into to a healthy vein. So now the guy that was running the place, his name, I don't know if it was his nickname, whatever, but his name was Jew. And he was a black guy. And he get us sit there in the place. And as the junkies would come in this place, they would look at us and Jew would nod his head and say, "We're cool." And they would go about shooting a drug anywhere that they had a healthy vein. I saw a sister shoot the drug up in her neck. I said, "Oh my God." Then when I saw this brother pull out his penis and shoot it, I went off. I said, "This is crazy." I went up to the brother. I said, "Brother, what are you doing? What about your woman, man?" And he said, "Man, this is better than any woman." I said, "Oh my God." I mean, I knew we'd mess up. But the next morning, we stayed there all night. We watched these brothers and sisters just coming there to get high. And in the morning, Jalal, he said, "Day breaks, got the shakes." And I just went joint dripping, mind sipping, body aches. We created a rap while we were walking after we had that experience. That was the genius of his ability. I felt that he had that whole concept of rhyme together, but it was like the swagger of who we were. He captured it in lyrics. He captured it in his work, and I think it had a great influence on hip hop because the first album you're talking about being a part of that whole underground movement that does not get to play. We sold 1 million copies of our first album by word of mouth. There was no social media, but if you say something that connects with the people, they will come. They will buy. Just build it, and they will come.
Can you just talk about like the circuit, the set, the clubs, the pubs, the speakeasies, the different places that were popular then that pulled these folks in, and again back to culture, the language, we talk about soccer to them and understand that means it's your thing, or it could be anything. You just gotta be doing something.
Right.
Like
right.
there's this wavelength that's going on with your generation specifically, where Daruba bin Wahad is a very close friend of mine, one of my mentors. And
okay.
the thing that just about Daruba is and just your generation is the knowledge and breadth of information that you guys have, the wealth of information, our generation, not so much. When we went to a club, it's party time. You guys go to a club, it's what's really good in the hood, what's on your mind. You gotta say something. You can't just be slacking, so to speak.
Listen, we believed in party, but we also believe in party with a consciousness. It was never any unconscious partying. All of the party, having our place, the East Wind was the home base for the Last Poets. The shows would be like, there may be a jazz group that would perform, and then we would perform. Or maybe a dance group that would perform. But after a while, after all the performances on stage ended, we just party. And we had potato salad and collard greens and chicken, and we had the music, and we party until maybe about 2 o'clock in the morning. And then after the party would be over, then Elijah would conduct like what I call a drum orgy, man. I mean, we had about 14 drummers playing, and if you weren't playing the rhythm right, he'd come and grab your hand and make and yeah, he would make you play the rhythm the right way, but it would go on until brothers would play so much until they would pee blood, man. It was amazing, but we were actually exercising our cultural right. We were experiencing and sharing the culture, something that we don't do as much now because we're caught up with the social media. They've given us too many toys that are illusionary items to play with. The realness of us is fading in many ways because a lot of us have bought into the illusion, and that breaks my heart. Even though we're able to talk to each other on the screen, we are really we're transcending some of this stuff as much as we can. But the reality is that much of the realness of us is dying because we've opted out to be a part of the system. And at that time, we were holding fast to all the gifts, and the realness of us was being exalted because we cared and we shared, and we truly believed we were going to have a revolution and we were going to win.
Yeah. Yes. It's something that you guys handed down to us. I, again, graduated high school 87, went to college 87, 88, 89. That time in hip hop culture was a renaissance to the 60s. It was us trying to discover what you guys were trying to share with us, cross generations. And when you see the Public Enemies, the KRS Ones, the different groups who really are the direct manifestation of the work that you guys put in. That's like,
and you mentioned the people who I have a lot of respect for. I have nothing but love for KRS, nothing but love for Rakim is one of my favorite rappers because he's kept it clean, but he's excellent. He's a poet. There's no two ways about it.
Par excellence.
And yes, and in order to really be a poet, to be a rapper, a good rapper, you better be a poet. But I tell people, poetry is like that spice you got to keep in your cabinet. You put poetry on everything. You put poetry on your clothes, on your food.
Yeah.
And if you're into the spoken word, rapping or whatever, you better poeticize it. You can't. Right. When Rakim says, "I came to the door," I said it before. I never let the mic magnetize me no more because it's biting me and fighting me, inviting me to rhyme. Come on, man. That's personification. All that heavy duty stuff that they want to teach in a creative writing class. We carry that stuff to the max. We carry it out. We can make it come to life. I love it. I've been teaching workshops online, but dealing with this Zoom thing, and I taught oxymorons last week to a bunch of kids in the shelter. And I said, now some people want to call this stuff slang. I said, but they're really oxymorons. And I said, oxymoron is when you have two words that are contradictory to one another. I said, we've been doing that forever. I said, first of all, we are the children of bad. I said, does anybody understand?
That means good.
I said, what does anybody understand what I'm saying? And this one little girl, she says, yeah, because bad is good, Brother Dune. I said, absolutely.
That's right.
I said, but if you read Merriam-Webster's dictionary, they're not going to say that. But we can say that because we have the ability to redefine everything. I said, I heard a brother say the other day, man, said, Tony is dumb smart. How could Tony be dumb smart?
Dumb smart. Yeah. Well, that's madism. Mad means a lot.
Exactly.
Ism means pot.
Yes.
Now, madism is our way of talking about all the isms: racism, sexism, fascism.
Brother, I got it when I saw the title. I know, and I love that because see, I've always said that this language that they forced us into saying has never been sufficient to actually speak to our feelings. This language doesn't give us the feeling reserve that we need. So bad has a better sound because we're soundologists. We're not, the word doesn't matter as much as a sound. Bad has much more funk with it than good. Yeah. And we're going to take the funky road. We're going
to flip it and bounce it.
Yeah.
We're going to flip it and bounce it. Make it something different.
Absolutely. And that's important because we're into sounds. I mean, I look, and that goes all the way back to Ella Fitzgerald when Louis Armstrong invented scatting. Ella Fitzgerald said, "I'm going to perfect this new language." now here we got a whole bunch of sounds. Ain't nobody know exactly what she said. All we know is she said shooba daba dee bop dee bop doo bop. But you got the flow, and
you felt what she meant.
You felt exactly what she meant, and it could make you happy, or it could make you just simply think.
Yeah, man. Yes, sir. The power of the word and what we do,
the word,
and what we're able to do to it as Black people, Black and brown people, indigenous people, original people. You know, our again connection to the universal power in the world, which is vibration, a word.
Exactly,
the word. Yeah,
and it's only a word because we've all agreed upon it to be a particular means something.
Contracts. Oh, that's whole nother. Oh, thank you, the elder. It's only a word because we agree on it.
That's right. And sometimes the sound supersedes the word. You know, Oscar Brown Jr. is one of our poets that needs to be recognized. He's no longer with us, of course, but Oscar Brown Jr. has on one of his tracks on one of his albums, he's got this piece called and it's a classic. I mean, this brother sees this bad sister standing at a bar, and she's fine, and everybody knows she's fine. She knows she's fine, and the brother's coming over there and to try to rap. This one brother, he's cool, he's dressed all nice, and he said, "Baby, you're so fine. I'm gonna take you to Paris to get you some clothes and do this and that. I'm gonna show you off to the world. As a matter of fact, we're gonna take a jet plane ride first class." And he's just running it down, all the beautiful things he's gonna do. And she turns and looks at him and says,
Tell me something new.
and he goes on. She goes on with some more rap, trying to still impress her. And every time he's going out of his way to impress her, she just looks at him and says, And so at the end of my little lesson, I asked the kids, I said, who said more, the brother or the sister? And the sisters always know. That sister said a lot, brother dude, when she said,
That's a whole book itself.
That's right.
That's crazy.
And who can deliver that better than a sister? You know, it kills me when I see some of the Susie Cream Cheese girls trying to get down with the language, and because they've been around. It's just like how they want every sister in the corporation to teach them how to do the electric slide around Christmas time because they think say, "Ooh, look at the way them Black folks is moving together." Well, I wish I could do that.
You know,
of course, we want to do that.
You know, I got some new slang, right? It's old slang probably, but it's new to me. Susie Cream Cheese. Karen in them. That's crazy. So elder. All right. So listen, what are you doing now? What you got going on now? You talk about gratitude.
Gratitude is a crowning jewel because it's family. It's really, you know, this looking back at what I said earlier about the last poets and how we wanted to unite poets to give an example to Black folks how we need to be united. Well, I think I've touched on something that's even deeper than that because this is a family project, and if we pump, and the way this is done, it's done so beautifully. Every single person involved is related to me, and it's a special project because my grandson did the tracks. My son, my firstborn, he dressed everything up. He put the icing on the cake. My son, who's a lawyer, he chose the poems that I should do with the tracks. My daughter-in-law, she sings. She's a diva. She sings. I got other people involved. Jay Ivy, who was like a son of mine, he's involved.
Very good friend of mine.
Jessica Care Moore, she's like a daughter. She's involved. So this is a family project, and I always say the power of example is the most moving force. So when we're trying to get something done, you want to get people who are committed, who you trust, who you know can get the job done. This gratitude, and then when my mother knew I was working on this project with the family, and she says, "Have you come up with a name for this new project that you're dealing with?" And I didn't have a name at the time, but my mother is about Jesus. She's about church. She's super Christian, and I wanted to say something that was mommy friendly. So I said, "Well, I was thinking about gratitude." She says, "Oh, that's beautiful." She said, "Oh,
that's a winner. That's a winner."
So when she signed up on that, there was no question that was going to be the name. And now we're looking at today. One of the things that we have to recognize, like I lost my brother during this pandemic. He caught the virus. He was down there in Florida. And he was in 2 weeks. He was gone. I mean, you know, of course, it leaves a hole in your soul because you miss these folks. My brother is having an adventure someplace. I just can't be in touch because I don't believe in life and death. I'm not down with that.
All
you know,
life.
Life is it's a continuation, baby. And we just move from one cycle to the next. The fact is that we all got to go. Everybody go and we come again. There's no question about that. And if we knew where we were the first time when we were here, we'd be outrageous. So we have to start from go and go through the whole situation over again. It's okay. To be grateful for our living, to be grateful for the things that we've been able to do, should be key in our minds at this moment, because the devil is still coming after us. And of course, with us having a lot of idle time, the devil is working his thing overtime. We've got a lot of kids that can get their hands on guns. Violence is raging because they got a lot of pent-up emotion. The virus has done a number to many of us. Many of us don't know what to do with ourselves. I'm telling people, you know, this is a time when you need to take care of your inner self. You know, develop a project that occupies your time on a serious level of doing something constructive. Don't sit and mope. You can't hang out with your boys. You can't hang out with your girls. Do something. Learn how to cook. Learn how to paint. Learn how to write. Do something that you can really be proud of. This is time for you to do some self-inventory. And at the same time, to keep yourself from being depressed, I'm telling people, reach out, call up somebody and share some good vibes with them, because that will stop you from being depressed. When you reach out to someone else, you automatically get out of yourself and you're able to reach and help someone else. You need to get outside of yourself. Right now, many of us are stuck inside of ourselves, and that can be dangerous because that'll take us to the basement. And then when you get down to the basement, sometimes it's hard to get back up. So we need to recognize that this is a very important moment in time, but gratitude, being grateful for what you've got, being grateful for who we are as a people, being grateful for just having air to breathe is something that we need to put on the table.
Yeah. And sharing gratitude, literally sharing gratitude would be a nice way to kind of keep your spirits up, because the project is fire, OG. I gotta tell you, I'm really feeling Harlem,
Oh yeah,
and,
well,
and
and
really
the thing about it,
really
brother,
feeling my life journey is crazy.
Oh yeah, yeah. Harlem. You know, the thing that makes that I was listening to Harlem the other day myself, and unfortunately, I'm talking about a Harlem that once was. Harlem is not that way today, unfortunately. A lot of the gifts, a lot of the jewels, a lot of the places I mentioned in that particular piece don't even exist. But the energy and the impact that the Harlem that we know had, that's going to last forever, because this has been, as I said earlier, Harlem has always been the citadel of Black culture. Matter of fact, to the point where many people from other places were scared to death to come to Harlem. If you look at the tour of the places to tour, if you come to America, Harlem is at the top of the list. And on any given Sunday, you'll see a whole bunch of Europeans get off tour buses, standing in front of the Apollo, because they know that that's one of the places where a whole lot of great talent that they admire came out of. And they're taking pictures but the Harlem that we knew has changed, because once again, I always say, you know, it's like that little nursery rhyme. Mary had a little lamb, the fleece was white as snow. And everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. I didn't know that we were Mary and that the white folks were the lamb, because there's no place we can go that they're not gonna come and find us. They want to suck that titty, they want to get that nurturing, because we're about life and we have an abundance of it. I always tell people we are battery chargers for this entire country. We charge their battery. That's why it breaks my heart when I see a sister like Serena, who we love so much because she was kicking butt on the tennis court, and you marry a Pillsbury doughboy. I know, listen, we can all find love with anybody from any race or culture. I'm not against that, but he cannot charge her battery. I had to tell my son, I said, Serena's not going to win no more championships because she's giving up the energy when she's with this guy. He may be a real nice guy. He may be a wonderful person, but he cannot charge her battery. Her battery needs to be charged in order for her to beat these girls who have learned how to play from watching her and her sister. And
Wow,
now
that is crazy. I never thought about it like that.
but that's the way it is. And we do that to ourselves. We deplete. It's like we're putting a little bit too much milk in our coffee sometimes. And we need to recognize that I have no problem if a person has found a white person in their life who they want to spend the rest of their life with. Fine, I have no problem with that. But recognize the roles that we play.
That's right.
We are genetically dominant in terms of the genetics of concern. There was a guy named Shockley who tried to say that black folks were born genetically inferior to white people. And Dr. Frances Cress Welsing killed him.
Smashed him.
Smashed him. She had no graphs. She had no charts.
Smashed him.
She had examples and her fine self sitting up there on that talk show. And the man started fumbling with his little charts and graphs. He couldn't wait for that show to be over because they know the truth. They did not come to Africa and get a bunch of ragamuffins. They got the royalty. They got the best of the best. OG. And then they wanted to possess us. So they said, we can't let them speak that language. We can't let them play no drums. Because they couldn't understand that stuff. And we have never really waged war against white folks. We've been nice to them. We have waged war against ourselves. More so than we waged war against them. They have nothing to fear from us. We're not a scary people. We're not the boogeyman. We don't hurt you. Now, you want to take the Mau Mau's, that's a different story. Because you're in Kenya trying to run things, and they said no.
They had a purpose and a reason. There was a reason for that. You in their land. They chase you out of there.
Exactly. But we're here. We didn't like you took my name. You made me call myself Willie. Yeah, and my name's something else. I couldn't play the drum. You were afraid that I was going to spook you out. I have my room, the room that I'm in right now. I got masks on the wall, and there's a white man that was a teacher of anthropology here at Columbia, because this is Columbia University's area, because that's where I've been teaching at. And he would never come in this room. And he said, "Man, that's the voodoo room." I said, "What are you talking about, the voodoo room?" Because I had all these African masks. I said, "The masks ain't gonna come alive and kill you. What are you worried about?" I said, you should be asking me questions about where these masks come from. He was scared to death. They have some superficial fears that I can't understand, because we're the sweetest people on the planet. You're not going to find a better group of people than us.
Yeah. Now, when you say, Serena and her husband, again, on an individual level, he's not suggesting that we shouldn't marry or be in love with the people we marry or be in love with. But when you look at group dynamics and how groups function, as a collective, Black people lose when we intermarry.
That's right.
We lose it. We're not saying, that the white person in the particular relationship is stronger than the person. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that because we're in a racist society, and racism is one way. It's a social structure created to perpetuate white dominance over the people of the colored people of the planet. That's racism. That is racism. So because that's the system that we're in, whenever we go in an interracial situation, we're just adding more dominance to the other side. So I don't want people to get offended or think, because
no,
that's not what we're talking about.
No, I've got some white friends who I would go to Africa with, and they even know that they also come from Africa. Every human being has that's the home for every living human being. Mm-hmm. And there's some white folks who admit that and have yielded to that, and I'm good with that. I don't want to hurt anybody. I don't want to, but I do know what we bring to the table. I know that I bring collard greens, and in my collard
and my collard greens don't have raisins in them.
Hey, listen, my collard greens have a little bit more iron than your broccoli. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it does, and no raisins. So, oh man, so but gratitude though. I want you to kind of pick some highlight cuts from this album project, Gratitude. Now, I said Harlem in my life were stood out to me. I got to finish going through the rest of the project, but what's some of your favorites off this project? Well, people should be looking out for.
Well, My Life is one of my favorites because I wrote that almost in protest. I had written a piece that, as I said earlier, my son, who was a lawyer, he was picking out. I have this red folder where my latest writings were in it. So whenever we went to Randall's house, my grandson's house, who the one that did the tracks, Oba would look at my red folder. He would be going through the stuff, and he'd pick out a poem and say, "Pops, you ought to do this poem with that track." And I would take his advice, and I would do the poem with the track. So Randall has a real strong track, and I had written this piece called Globesity, and I want to talk about how the whole world had become greedy and
Globesity. That's dope. That's fire.
Yeah, and I felt it was a strong piece, and I was dealing with the greed of the planet and how we were gonna be in a very, very bad way because there's 1% of the folks wanted all the money and all the wealth and all that kind of stuff. And it was a strong piece. But my son said, "Pops, that's not strong enough for the track that he gave you." I felt insulted. I was like, "You got to be kidding me."
Fire.
I mean, he broke my heart, man. I mean, but the one thing I do say, I will admit, my kids are my biggest critics. And even though they may say something you might not want to hear, they speak the truth. And you got to have somebody close to you that you trust, that you know is not going to lie to you just because you look good or you sound good or you got to forget that. You want people to be honest with you, straight up. So when he told me that was not working, I got pissed off. And I said, let me just go, man, this is my life, damn it. And I wrote a piece called My Life. And when I wrote that, and we went back to my grandson's house the next week, and I put that poem in my folder. I picked the poem and said, do this poem with that track, Pops. And I'm saying, doesn't he realize I wrote that in protest of what he said? But My Life became a very important piece because it was speaking honestly. When I talked about when I was speaking about my life, I meant every single word, and I think above and beyond everything else, to be honest, to be sincere, carries more weight than anything else. When you are not trying to be an artist, you're just trying to be a human being, but you're trying to express your humanity through your art. There's nothing greater than that, and that's what happened with Gratitude. Every track on that album was expressing my honest feelings about my life, about the loves of my life, my feelings about all the different activities like Occupy, for example. People trying to get me to come down to Wall Street when they were trying to occupy Wall Street. I wasn't down with that occupying. I played that hand. And I know what that is. So you become a squatter. So you're up all night and you're sleeping in the rain and all kinds of stuff. No. We have to do better than that. We got to graduate from that. So I dealt with the issues that were at hand, and I had people around me to help me choose what was going to work, what they felt would work. And I'm just very proud and pleased that I had a great team.
Yeah, it's a wonderful project, and I encourage everybody out there to go check it out. It is called Gratitude by Abiodun Oyewole. Let me get that right.
You said it perfect, brother.
let the people know where they can go pick that up, though. I know it's on Bandcamp.
It should be available almost everywhere because the record label has put it out. And I know a lot of folks, I've been getting a lot of calls from folks I haven't heard from in a long time. So Bandcamp, SoundCloud, that's another facility, Pandora. I think it's on every available social media outlet. I mean, I haven't done a check necessarily, but I do know for a fact that it's available. And I just got my shipment, and I'm surprised that along with the CDs that were shipped to me from the company, they also shipped it to me about a dozen vinyls. So I guess the vinyls are back too. I mean, it really blew my mind. The vinyl was deep. I saw a big old picture of my face on the front of the vinyl. I said, "Oh my God!" I mean, that talk about bringing back memories.
Actually, there's been a resurgence for vinyl over the last like 10 years, but definitely over the last like 2 or 3 years, a strong resurgence for vinyl.
Yeah,
that's good. You got that pressed up.
Well, you know what they always say, it always comes back. Everything comes back around.
360. I want to give a big shout out to Juanita for hooking this up, making this happen.
My social media manager.
Yeah.
Juanita is a Pisces like myself, and she's my niece. and she always tell people that she's my favorite niece. The fact is that she is a jewel. My mother says
Mhm.
even every family should have a Juanita because
Wow.
Juanita she's a family person. She
Mhm.
can organize stuff. She's a great organizer.
Mhm.
And she's funny as all get out. I mean,
Nice.
she's got a sense of humor that you may not be feeling like laughing, but if you're
She
around her long enough, you're
she
gonna
gonna
laugh.
make you laugh. Yeah,
She's
she's
gonna
good
make you
people.
laugh. I mean, she's a special person, and I'm just really, really happy that we've connected like we have because I've always appreciated her, and I used to get on her because when she was in high school, she used to be a super dime, and then she blew up and got kind of chubby, and I said, I said, yeah,
Breaks now.
yeah, but no, but I used to always crack on her, but the fact is that she is still beautiful, absolutely
Mhm.
inside out.
Yeah.
And I have to give her a lot of credit because she's a family person.
Mhm.
She is concerned about everyone in the family. If you want to get something done, she's the person to go to get it done. She doesn't front. If she says she's going to do it, it's going to be done.
Yep.
And to have anyone like that in your family or close to you, that you can't beat that because a lot of folks talk a lot of talk, but they don't walk the walk. Juanita does both. She can talk the talk and walk the walk. And I'm just really, really very proud and grateful that she is a part of my life and she's a family member who has really been instrumental in helping me get through all this mechanical stuff that I have no listen, I'm one of the few people on the planet that doesn't even have a cell phone.
You know, that's unique in this day and age. I know
Yes.
KRS-One really doesn't do the cell phone thing too well. He doesn't do social media, none of that stuff. He doesn't even fly. But
Yep.
it's like maybe 2 or 3 people left on the planet who hasn't got, totally
No,
addicted to
I
the cell
refuse to
phone.
get one. I tell people my landline works. If you want to leave a message, I'll follow up. I'm reliable.
Mhm.
And like I'm talking to you on my iPod, I got this because sometimes my computer might act up. And so I needed a substitute so I could get my email because I get a lot of work through my email. So that's why I have this little iPad and I can do my little Zoom stuff on the iPad.
Yeah. Now, before we get up out of here, I was hoping that I could share a piece with you, and that
Yes, by all means.
you could bless a piece, our audience with a special piece from you after. So,
No problem.
all right. So I performed this piece. It was an event that we did in Philadelphia. It was a fundraiser for Russell Schultz, rest in
Okay.
peace. And I did this piece, which was inspired by the last poet. So I'm just gonna hop in and
Okay.
tell you. Let's get straight to the fact. Egypt is really Cam, and Cam means black. But what's right and exact is what most niggas lack. The ancestors called us king. Ingu was the word for that. Inga is my queen. If you don't know what I mean, check the Kebra Nagas, which is the book of kings. But niggas don't study, they get caught up in the drama like snakes in the grass, my nigga. I don't be naga. Check the saga. I'll bring you holy mana. The sun rises in the east, which wakes the holy prana. So let me pause like the comma. Check that nigga's dharma. What goes around comes around. Check that nigga's karma. Now, if you don't get the point, here's some more, my nigga. He's from the gods and earths, and he's a more, my nigga. My nigga Nigel comes from Niger. I call Nigel my nigga. People get hyper. I'm like the last poets because I love my niggas. Who would ever thought the president would be my nigga? What goes around comes around, time always tells. Words cast spells to dispel mental hell. Looking through the vision of another man's sight. See God in yourself, my nigga. It's all right. Just rise from the lower, plant seeds for the sower. If Jigga is my nigga, how could he be Jehovah? Jehovah is really Yahuwah, or you could say Yahoo. Now, who's the real G? Not the male, you fools. Words are just tools now. Who weighs and measures? My niggas flipping words in the quest for earthly treasures. It's all mathematics, so we say my nigga. It's more right and exact, plus got swag and flavor. Since power's in the word, the Lord said name it. We named ourselves niggas. Now niggas don't want to claim it. I paint the picture, frame it. We let the devil shame. A people with no name is a people with no aim. With no land to claim, our struggle goes in vain. But my niggas fight over words that's inflicted so much pain. I want to say my niggas sell refrain around white people because they don't understand the pain. My naga heals the venom and makes the serpent tame. The resurrected niggas on the throne set the reign. Peace, my nigga.
And that's a nigga piece that I can definitely relate to. because you know, a lot of times when we use that word, it's used in a derogatory manner, and sometimes, of course, hip hop has made it very friendly, very loving. I said just like we as people go through different evolutionary changes, that word has evolved. Because when you say nigga now, because I was in Rome, we had a gig in Rome a few years back, and outside of the hotel where I was at, there was these Italian boys, and one said, "Man, what's up with? Come on, nigga, what's up with you?" And I'm saying, "Damn, we got Italian niggas, we got Chinese niggas, we got Brazilian niggas." I mean, the word hip hop has made that word a feature part of every young person's conversation on the planet. So we need to recognize that the nigga has moved from one thing to the next, because when they gave us that name, they meant to hurt us, like a lot of other things they gave us that meant to hurt us, and we flipped it. And just like we flipped bad and made bad wonderful, we flipped nigga, because see, the original nigga was a mule, and a lot of folks don't know that. That when the animal was, when they made the mule by putting a horse with a donkey, they didn't have a nickname for it. They had a nickname for the horse. They called the horse a nag. They had a name for, but they didn't have nothing for this new animal. And so they called the animal a nigger. But now, by the same token, they were referring to, if the master or the overseer said, "I want two niggas in front of the barn at 6 o'clock in the morning," one could be a four-legged mule and the other could be a black man. How did they both ended up? They both ended up getting that name because they both represented the property of the master, and so that's where he would refer, because it was always an effort to dehumanize us. They never wanted us to be, because admit that we were human would actually take them outside and put them in this space that they didn't want to be in, because our humanity was much greater than theirs. And they were telling themselves, "Why are you gonna bring your baby out to the shack for my sister to breastfeed your baby, and you're not even referring to her as human?" I mean, something I got in my system that's gonna make your baby strong. What's wrong with your little white titty and the milk coming from it? Oh, you got to bring her to me. Okay, so they tell them so all the time. And Gone with the Wind had Hattie McDaniel. She was running the house, and the name that they gave her in the script was Mammy. Mammy translates to mother. Everybody knows mother is running everything, and so they always tell themselves. They always let you know, we know who you are, but we don't want you to
Want
know
you
who
to
you
know
are.
exactly. That is exactly.
Exactly. And so
They
they
know.
do
They don't want you to know. And once you know who
exactly.
you are, game over. Done.
Absolutely. So yes, I appreciate that very much, brother. And that's one reason why when we travel, one of the most sought after pieces is written by my partner Umar Ben
Oh,
Hassan.
yes, sir.
Niggas are scared of
Of
revolution.
revolution.
And that piece, we were in Copenhagen about 10 years ago, and the place had, I don't know how many thousands of people, and somebody way in the back yelled out, "Are you going to do niggas are scared of revolution?" I said, "Damn, Umar, you be doing that poem until you're 100 years old."
Yeah.
Because the poem is requested every place we go. Because
Yeah.
because because now the whole concept of, if you say nigga now, we're talking about a rebel. We're talking about somebody that you cannot put in a box. You're talking about somebody who's gonna bust out of that box. And I even have taken it to a step further. Niggas are unprenegable. You don't know what the hell a nigga gonna do.
He said niggas are unprenegable.
Unprenegable. You can't predict what niggas are gonna do. But
You
that
can't
word does
predict.
not it does
You
not
can't predict.
suffice. But let me share.
Oh
Let
Lord,
me share
Lord.
with you this.
This is
I'm gonna
deep.
do something that I just finished, because I
Yes,
try to
sir.
write often, because that's like breathing for me. And
Mm-hmm.
and I always, and at this moment in time, I try to deal with things that are in our face right now.
Mm-hmm.
So this is because you asked for peace, and this is right in front of my face. Let me share this. This moment. This moment requires the best of us. There is no time for mistakes, for sloppy activity, for holes in our souls. We must be complete. This is the moment to be loved and share love, to be kind and show kindness, to be work and do the work. Out of the ruins of this wretched experience, we must find a way to let our light shine. Reach out to someone in need. Be a guide for the blind, hope for the hopeless, someone who cares. Flowers will bloom tomorrow. The sun will shine even brighter. Life will be a joy to live. This moment should not be in vain.
Sir,
Yes, sir.
I appreciate you so much. And I
I
thank you for
appreciate
sharing.
you, brother.
Yeah,
And I
brother.
love the fact that you are doing something wise with the equipment given to you and the ability to reach out to others and try to raise their levels of consciousness and their love for themselves. I appreciate you very, very much. We need you. Continue to do your work. Thank you for having me on your show. And let's stay in touch.
Yes, sir. Pleasure and privilege is all mine, and the audience who got a chance to sit in and can catch these jewels that you was dropping.
Beautiful.
This is your man Hakeem Green. Channel live and direct. BDP all day, every day. All we do, spark Madism. Madism TV. We out of here. Peace to everybody that showed up. One love.
One love.